we say it again. I say, I got the, when I'm in the land. Come on, let's get into it. Tell me who can stand before us when we count on that great, call on that name, precious, precious. Well, one more time and sing it with some heart. Well, in the name, I got the, we have the victor. I've been, in the name, I've been delivered. In the name, 'cause I'm in the scripture. You don't have to flee. Well, tell me who can stand before us when we call on what? What you call on? Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus. We have the victory. Hallelujah. 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 I'm going to sit down now.
Waiting for who to sing? We got some more singers coming up. Who coming up?
Nah.
Brother Andre?
I'm reading, bro.
The mic right here, man.
I'm reading, bro.
Alright. I want to say all praise to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And peace to everybody that's here in the name of Jesus. Peace to everybody that may be listening online, Facebook, YouTube, wherever we may be streaming. It would be wise to like and subscribe because, brothers and sisters, we do have the true word of God. And we are putting the true word of God out and the gospel of Jesus' soon coming kingdom to all nations. Brothers and sisters, we're putting that out. So, it's best that in these last days that we in, that you help get this word out by liking, sharing, subscribing to these pages, because we know that's one of the ways God is using the word to spread. And we know that the gospel has to spread to all nations before the end comes, brothers and sisters. Right. We're a part of this. We're a part of this kingdom. We're a part of God's gospel and his soon coming kingdom. So we need to do our job with that. And we're going to get into another Sabbath lesson today, brothers and sisters. And, the title is The Book of Negroes, God's Story, Not History. Right? Because, the book, right? The book we talking about, obviously, we talking about God, and we are a Bible reading, Bible believing organization. So the book that I'm talking about is obviously the Bible, brothers and sisters. And we know the book or the name Bible means books. It means book or collection of books. So the book that we talking about, when we talk about the Bible, is a book centered around Negroes. It's centered around some Negroes. All right? And that's a beautiful thing when we understand who we truly are, brothers and sisters, because we not just, proverbs and bywords. We not just, some random title or color, which the word Negro just means black in Spanish and Portuguese. But we are a nationality, a nation of people, and we have to claim that history, brothers and sisters, and not let other nationalities, other people with their agendas and the vain imagination of men that have lied on us and lied throughout history, the people that rule the world, right? They say those who win the wars write the history books. But we're not letting their story be told about us. We're going to the Bible to see our story, brothers and sisters. And this is actually God telling this story. We're going to see that. God's the author of this. So this Bible, you know, when you go to the Bible and search for your identity, you're getting that straight from God. So it's going to be right. It's going to be correct. You try to, you know, go to the Egyptian Book of the Dead, you're not going to get it right. You go to the textbooks in these elementary schools and these high schools and even in some colleges, you're not going to get it right because it's his version. It's the man's version, right? It's your enemy's version. And they've been lying on us for centuries, brothers and sisters, millennia even. So we need to go to the true source, brothers and sisters, to our history, to reclaim our identity, to reclaim our strength, rebuild us as a group of people, as a nation, brothers and sisters. So let's take a look at it. Let's take a look at God's story. That's this book right here. We're going to start in Isaiah 46. And my brother Andre, you know, if you don't know, I'm brother Joshua, and this is brother Andre, my esteemed soldier in Christ. And we're going to be delivering this word of God for y'all today. So Isaiah 46, pick it up at verse 8 when you get there, bro.
Remember this, and show yourselves, men.
Yep.
Bring it again to mind, O ye transgressors.
All right, so he said, remember this and show yourselves men. So we know men write books, right? Men have his story. That's where you get the word history from, his story. But we're not talking about men per se for this lesson. We want you to understand that it's God's story. So remember, you can show yourselves like a man, but nah, this is bigger than man, brothers and sisters. God is in control of this.
That's right.
Man can't touch this. All right, read verse 9.
Remember the former things of old, for I am God.
Okay, so that's the difference. You got men, but you got God. And this is where we're looking at God's story, brothers and sisters, not his story. So we're going to get it right. Keep going.
And there is none else.
There is none else. Keep going.
I am God.
Yeah.
And there is none like me.
There is none like the God that we serve, brothers and sisters. You should fear this God and obey this God. There is none like this God. Keep reading, bro.
Declaring the end from the beginning.
So what's God done? Say that again.
Declaring the end from the
God's
beginning.
told the end from the beginning. So our story, brothers and sisters, is perfect. It's perfectly compacted. It's perfectly retained because it's been told by God from the beginning. The end's been told. So if we want to get it right and we don't want to be confused listening to others tell our story, then we have to go to God, to the source who's told it all the way from the beginning. Keep reading, bro.
And from ancient times,
right,
the things that are not yet done.
Right.
Saying, my counsel shall stand, and I will do all my pleasure.
Yeah, God can do whatever he wants. He's God. Keep reading.
Calling a ravenous bird from the east, the man that executeth my counsel from a far country. Yea, I have spoken it. I will also bring it to pass. I have purposed it. I will also do it.
So whatever God calls and whatever he declares, it's going to happen, brothers and sisters. So if he told you he going to put you on some slave ships, best believe it's going to happen. But we know that the same God that scattered Israel into captivity is going to be the same one that gathers them. So best believe that's going to happen too. So we have something to look forward to. This is not just black history, it's black present and black future, brothers and sisters, because God done told the end from the beginning. Right. Keep reading, man.
Hearken unto me,
yeah,
ye stout-hearted,
right,
that are far from righteousness.
Keep going.
I bring near my righteousness. It shall not be far off, and my salvation shall not tarry.
All right, so yeah, this is the God that we believe in. The God that's telling this story is bearing salvation. He's bringing salvation, brothers and sisters. That's what we all are striving for, salvation. So we need to go to this book. He authored it. Finish that out, though.
And I will place salvation in Zion for Israel, my glory.
Israel, my glory. So that's what we're talking about, these Negroes, brothers and sisters. This is God's glory. So don't let no man try to revise history, try to whitewash the Bible. Now, we're going to see that this is a book of Negroes, brothers and sisters, and Israel is God's glory. That's Psalm right. 68. Psalm 68. We're going to try to move through this because I ain't the only one teaching today. We got Brother Chris going to come up here pretty soon. So we're going to get through this lesson. Psalm 68. We continuing to look at this book from God, brothers and sisters. Because you know, if you want to get it right, you have to go to the Bible. That's the only way to get it right, especially when it comes to our identity.
That's right.
Because it's been lost. Our culture's been lost. When you go into slavery, that's what happens. Not only are you not treated as a human, but you lose your culture. You lose your language, your identity, your purpose. So we need to get that reclaimed by going to the book, by going to the Bible, brothers and sisters. That's the only way it's going to happen. We done tried everything else. We done tried to be Black Panthers. I heard Brother Elijah say one time, the only thing left from that fist is a little nub. It's the only thing left because they destroyed you. Because you didn't seek the true solution, which is not marching, it's not military power, it's not economic development, brothers and sisters. This is a spiritual problem. It's not political, it's spiritual. And that's why we need to go to this book, God's story, about us to get it right and to get back on track with God. And to not be deceived by all other, people's version of our history. All right, so Psalm 68, let's take a look at this book that we read in, brothers and sisters. Let's learn something about this book. Verse 11.
The Lord gave the word.
Yeah.
Great was the company of those that published
Okay,
it.
so this ain't a book written or given by man, right? Yes, it was written by man, but it was inspired by God.
That's right.
Because it says the Lord gave the word. So indeed, this is God's story, brothers and sisters. This is not his story. The Lord gave the word, and great was the company of those that published it. All right, that's verse 11. Skip down to 31.
Princes shall come out of Egypt.
Uh-huh.
Ethiopia shall soon stretch out her hands
All
unto
right,
God.
so that's more black history that we're looking at. Egypt and Ethiopia, but we're going to see that these Negroes are not Egyptians. These Negroes are not Ethiopians. This is a future event we're talking about. The kings and the princes of the world going to come and subject themselves unto our king, which is Jesus. That's what that's talking about. But keep reading. 32.
Sing unto God, ye kingdoms of the earth.
Uh-huh.
Oh, sing praises unto the Lord.
Yeah.
Selah.
Selah. It's Selah. Selah, you pause. That's something you think about. Because the nations of the earth not doing this right now, brothers and sisters. That's why I say lie. They're going to be doing it in the future, though. And we know why. Selah. 33.
To him that rideth upon the heavens of heavens,
Yeah.
which were of old, lo, he does send out his voice, and that a mighty voice.
Keep reading, bro.
Ascribe ye strength unto God.
Yeah.
His excellency is over Israel.
All right, so the one that gave this word, brothers and sisters, and great was the company that published it, his excellency is over Israel. So you need to know about this book, brothers and sisters. God has a special love for his people, for these Negroes.
That's right.
These Negroes. Keep reading, man.
And his strength is in the clouds.
Uh-huh.
O God, thou art terrible out of thy holy places.
Right.
The God of Israel is he that giveth strength and power unto his people. Blessed be God.
All right, so God is the creator. He's the one bringing salvation. But look how he titles himself. He is the God of Israel. Or, for lack of a better term, when you don't know who you are, the God of Negroes. Just like how they had that show, the Book of Negroes. Well, this is really it. The Bible is really it, brothers and sisters.
Teach.
It says, oh God, 35, oh God, thou art terrible out of thy holy places, the God of Israel. That's what we're reading about, God's story. The God of Israel is he that giveth strength and power unto his people. Who are his people? The children of Israel, brothers and sisters. That's what we're talking about. The Book of Negroes, Amos 3. Amos 3. We're going to learn how to understand this book that we reading, because you have a lot of people that have come and butchered the understanding, butchered the doctrine, revised the literature, revised the understanding from this book, and have given it to us falsely. And see, we following the wrong people. We following the slave masters when we are Baptists, brothers and sisters. When you are Lutheran, you following the slave master. That's a revisionist form of what's in this book. That's not who you're supposed to learn the book from. Amos 3 and 7. It's a certain people that's supposed to teach you this book. It ain't everybody. And it ain't your slave master. Amos 3, one verse, pick it up, verse 7.
Surely the Lord God will do nothing.
All right, so this same God we talking about, the God of Israel, the God that's bringing salvation, he said surely, right? That means it's a definite. Surely the Lord God will do nothing, right? He's saying no cap, surely. But what?
But he revealeth his secret unto his servants, the prophets.
Oh, so if you want to know the secrets, if you want to know the understanding from God, brothers and sisters, you have to know who these Negroes are, because they are the prophets of God. The Lord said, I raised up for your sons prophets and Nazarites. It ain't your slave master. It ain't the Baptists. It wasn't, the Lutherans, like I said. It wasn't Martin Luther who protested, who formed the Protestant, denominations. It wasn't him. He's not the prophets. It's not Islam. It's not, Farrakhan and Muhammad and Elijah Muhammad. It ain't none of them. Because they not, they following the Arabs, the Ishmael Muhammad that, who was supposedly a prophet. Well, how can he be a prophet when we know the prophets of God, brothers and sisters, are the Israelites? He said, I raised up to your sons for prophets and Nazarites. He said, read Psalm 137. He hasn't dealt with any other nation. So it can't be Ishmaelites, right? So you shouldn't be following Islam. You're not an Arab. The Arabs enslaved us for 1,300 years. Before the transatlantic slave trade, you had the trans-Saharan slave trade, brothers and sisters. So why would you follow another? What big deal you doing? You saying, oh, I'm leaving Christianity. It's false, it's false. Yeah, Sunday Christianity is false. But you want to leave that because the slave master, they say the white man wrote the book. No, we just saw the Lord gave the word, though. So that's another lie. That's another fallacy, right? But how can you say you're going to leave that because the white man wrote it, but then you jump to Islam? And the white man enslaved us. I ain't following that. But guess what? The Arabs enslaved you too. So why are you following that? It don't make no sense. When you don't have this book and the understanding that God has given, you're going to be confused. And we know God is not the author of confusion. So be mindful of which author you're listening to. But we're going to listen to the author of the book of Negroes, brothers and sisters, which is God, the Most High. So let's keep it moving. Deuteronomy 7. Let's look at what these Negroes were chosen for. Deuteronomy 7. Deuteronomy 7, pick it up, and let's see why the Israelites or why the Negroes were chosen by God. What were they chosen for? Because it's not good enough to know, oh, the Jews are chosen, the Jews are chosen. No, what were they chosen for is the question you should be asking. And that's how we're going to know our purpose, brothers and sisters. It's not good enough to know you're an Israelite according to the flesh, right? Because we know there's no Jew or Greek, no Jew or Gentile in Christ. So it's not good enough to know that. You got to know your purpose. What did God choose you for? Deuteronomy 7, pick it up at verse 6.
For thou art an holy people.
Okay, we're supposed to be a holy people. Unto who though? Unto what?
Unto the Lord
Unto
thy God.
the Lord thy God. Because this is God's story. Keep going.
The Lord thy God has chosen thee to be a special people unto himself.
So God chose you Negroes. Why you out here in these streets wilding? You don't represent God's chosen people when you in the streets wilding, brothers and sisters.
Come on.
When you're not taking care of your duties, your responsibilities as a man and as a woman. Right? When you out here reckless, how are you acting as God's chosen? How are you acting holy, right, when you just fornicated? Or all you thinking about is turning up? How is that holy? How are you chosen by God, right, and you can't control your temper? You can't control your temperament. How are you supposed to rule with God and his kingdom for you when you don't have no patience, no mercy? That's not holiness, right?
Come on.
You don't have no discretion. That's not holiness. You a sodomite. You an adulterer, a fornicator. Eating unclean food, which God said is an abomination. Just like homosexuality. That's not holy, brothers and sisters. That's why we need to get back to this holy book by God's holy word so we can do what we need to do to be a holy people, because we've fallen from that. And the whole world needs to understand that, because that's what they need to follow. All right, so where you at, bro?
At middle of 6.
Keep going.
Above all people
Right.
that are upon the face of the earth.
Right. You're supposed to be above. Keep reading.
The Lord did not set his love upon you, nor choose you, because you were more in number than any people.
Right.
For ye were the fewest of all people.
Right. So it don't even make sense for these Israelites to be operating in pride like they better than the other nations and God gonna save them and nobody else because they're Israel. Nah, that's not why God chose you. Keep reading. Why did God choose you?
Verse 8. But because the Lord loved you, and because he would keep the oath which he has sworn unto your fathers, have the Lord brought you out with a mighty hand, and redeemed you out of the house of bondmen, from the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt.
Oh, so that's some more black history, brothers and sisters. We see that God redeemed. We know Israel was in captivity in Egypt, the land of Ham, which is Africa, for 400 years, right? And Moses came and he delivered the people through the power of God. And he told Pharaoh to let my people go. Pharaoh hardened his heart, brothers and sisters. And you can see the proof of this. Just Google Israelites in Egypt. And you'll see them all on the walls. You'll see Israelite slaves and Egyptian taskmasters. That's right. All throughout history. Even got segments from the History Channel. You'll find it in the pyramids, in the tombs, right, in the caves. You see it. So this is real history, brothers and sisters. God chose Israel because verse 8, he says the Lord loved you. And because he will keep the oath. See, God gonna keep his word. We got a problem with keeping ours, though. That's the problem. God gonna do his part. Are you gonna do yours, though? He said he would keep the oath, which he had sworn unto your fathers. Have the Lord brought you out with a mighty hand. He delivered us from bondage, brothers and sisters. And we're going to see he's going to do the same thing in these last days.
That's right.
And redeemed you. See, he redeemed us from Egypt before. Now we in Egypt worldwide. He's going to have to do it again. And redeemed you out of the house of bondmen. That's what Egypt stands for us. That's our history of Egypt. That's our worldview of Egypt. It was bondage. From the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Keep reading, bruh.
Know therefore that the Lord thy God, he is God, the faithful God.
I told you, God gonna do his part. He faithful, right? God is loyal. He true. You know, he look at us like, these niggas ain't loyal. Because he know he loyal, he faithful. Keep going, bruh.
Which keepeth covenant and mercy with them that love him, and keep his commandments to 1,000 generations.
To 1,000 generations. In other words, forever. Verse 10.
And repayeth them that hate him to their face.
All right, hold up. So look, this is a prelude. These two verses is like Deuteronomy 28 summed up, if you think about it. Because verse 9 is the blessings. It says, know therefore that the Lord thy God, he is God, the faithful God, which keepeth his covenant and mercy. Mercy is a blessing, brothers and sisters, with them that love him. That's Deuteronomy 28, 1 through 15, right there. Because if you love God, you're going to keep his commandments. And he said, if you keep my commandments, I will bless you. He says, which keep the covenant and mercy with them that love him and keep his commandments to 1,000 generations. See, we should have been blessed. Obviously, we dropped the ball. That's why we referred to as Negroes. Because we were more like verse 10. Read it again.
And repay of them that hate him to their face.
So the opposite of love is hate, which means in this context, the opposite of keeping God's commandments and loving him is breaking his laws. Not keeping the Sabbath. Not obeying your parents. Right? Not loving your brethren. Not putting God first. Serving false gods. That's not loving him, brothers and sisters. And repayeth them that hate him to their face. To what?
To destroy them. He will not be slack to him that hateth him. He will repay him to his face.
Yeah, because that's the goodness and the severity of the Lord. Now let's look at an example, let's look at some, in this day in black history, or this day in history. Let's look at one of our kings, one of our great leaders, because they like to do that during Black History Month. They try to look at, all the leaders and the people who's gotten us far and great achievements and, black excellence, black brilliance. They like to look at that. Black innovators. But brothers and sisters, all that they give us in this, while we're here in these shores is history after slavery. That don't really tell you who you are. It just shows that, you are capable of thriving, staying alive, and succeeding to a degree while in captivity. That's all that's showing. It ain't showing you who you truly are. It's not showing you how to get back to God with this history. It ain't showing you that. But we going to see one of our kings, because we don't even, they give us black history. You don't even got a king to look at, though, when they show us black history, right?
That's right.
You got Martin, you got Malcolm, you got Huey, right? They weren't kings, though. 1 Kings 4. Let's look at some Negro history. Let's take it all the way back. 1 Kings 4. This is what we were supposed to be as a nation, brothers and sisters. Verse 1. Go ahead.
So King Solomon was king over all Israel. Jump down to 20.
Yeah. So King Solomon was king over all Israel. That's who he was. Right? Now go down, skip down to verse 20.
Judah and Israel were many, as the sand which is by the sea in multitude, eating and drinking and making merry.
Right. So look, God said if you keep his commandments, he's going to show mercy unto you. Well, this is mercy right here. This is when we had the blessings, brothers and sisters. Verse 20 says Judah and Israel, right, what were they doing? It says they were many. As the sand which is by the sea in multitude, what were they doing though? Eating and drinking and making merry. Merry, you were happy, brothers and sisters. Peaceful. That ain't the state today. That's not the state of the union today.
Not at all.
21, go ahead.
And Solomon reigned over all kingdoms from the river unto the land of the Philistines and unto the border of Egypt. They brought presents and served Solomon all the days of his life.
Wow, so imagine a time when we were ruling, when we were kings, brothers and sisters. This is it. This is some true, real black history. This is God's story, the Bible's black history, brothers and sisters. King Solomon ruled all the lands. He was ruling the whole world right here, from Philistine, it said unto the land of Philistine, unto the border of Egypt, and they brought presents and served Solomon all the days of his life. Now we the servants serving other people all the days of our life, because we turned our back against God, and we're going to see that. Skip down to 24.
For he had dominion over all the region on this side the river.
Right.
From Tifsah even to Azar, over all the kings on this side the river.
Right.
And he had peace on all sides round
He
about
had
him.
peace in all sides round about him. How many of us can say that today, brothers and sisters? But this is our true history. This is our rich history when we were kings, brothers and sisters. This is some real history that they need to be shown, right? Because the history that we get, the black history that we get, not only is it a bunch of lies, but it does nothing to get us where we need to go. Right? Even when black people try to do it and try to take a hand of it. I was speaking to my wife, Kirsten, yesterday about that, showing how in the Smithsonian in D.C., where we are, where we stay at, where we live, in D.C., you got the Smithsonian, you got the National Museum of African American History and Culture. And Oprah and all the, the few people that have made it in this, while we enslaved, right? They've contributed to that. And it was a lot of hands-on African Americans, aka Israelites, that put their money towards that. And they put their resources inside the museum to showcase our history and retell it. Right? But guess what? Guess where they start at with that, though? Do they go to when we were kings? No, it starts with slavery, brothers and sisters.
That's right.
And we need to understand that slavery is just a result. It's just, the position that we're in because we've broken God's laws. See, we don't know that, though, because we're not reading this book. See, this book will tell you who you truly are. You didn't start as a slave. We didn't drop out of the sky as slaves on some slave ships. Now, God pronounced this because the end was told from the beginning. So we need to reclaim our true history, not even as, African Americans. We have to do it as Israelites, brothers and sisters. Because if you do it as African Americans, understand, you're doing that as a subject, right? You're doing that as a subject. Even Kevin Hart tried to have the Netflix special where he did Black history, and it was great. It was great information involved, but guess what? It don't take us back here. It don't take us back before we were slaves, before Africa, before the land of Ham, before the transatlantic slave trade. Mm-hmm. So what are we supposed to think? That we just slaves and we got to work for the white man. And that's it, right? You make it in this country, they still own you. So it's deeper than that, brothers and sisters. It's bigger than that. And it's in the Bible. It's God's story. It's not his story. Where you at, bro?
25.
Read it.
And Judah and Israel dwelt safely.
Look at that. We were safe right here, brothers and sisters. It ain't nothing but chaos and murder in these streets right now. That we ain't safe no more. This was back in the day. This was back when we were kings. Go ahead.
Every man under his vine and under his fig tree, from Dan even to Beersheba, all the days of Solomon.
Right. Skip down to 29, bro.
And God gave Solomon wisdom and understanding, exceeding much, and largeness of heart, even as the sand that is on the seashore.
Right. So, brothers and sisters, God gave Solomon wisdom and understanding, and exceeding much, and largeness of heart. That means a broad mind to understand things, even as the sand is of the seashore, because we supposed to be a holy nation, a nation of priests. So we supposed to work for God, and God's supposed to bless us with that wisdom when we love him and keep the covenant.
That's right.
This is a prototype. This is a microcosm of what the whole nation was supposed to be. Because we were supposed to be the priests of God to all the world. And we're going to see that. Keep reading.
And Solomon's wisdom excelled the wisdom of all the children of the east country.
Right.
And all the wisdom of Egypt. For he was wiser than all men, than Ethan the Ezrahite, and Heman the Chalcol, and Darda, the sons of Mahol, and his fame was in all nations round about.
Look at that. His fame was all about, brothers and sisters. This was before the internet. This was before World Star. His fame was in all nations round about because of his wisdom. It said it excelled all the wisdom of all the other people. This is a Negro, brothers and sisters, an Israelite. But see, the power that you have when you're serving God is amazing. And we supposed to be like this today. But we dropped the ball, and that's why we need to get back on it. We need to know our true history. It ain't nothing wrong with knowing what our ancestors did in this country, brothers and sisters. But if we want to really be healed, and if we want to reclaim our status and get right with God, we got to go back to this. We got to go beyond this country. We supposed to be like this. Keep going, bro.
32. And he spake 3,000 proverbs, and his songs were 1,005. And he spake of trees, from the cedar tree that is in Lebanon, even unto the hyssop that springeth out of the wall. Mm-hmm. He spake also of beasts, and of fowl, and of creeping things, and of fishes. And there came of all people to hear the wisdom of Solomon, from all kings of the earth, which had heard of his wisdom.
Look at that. That's what our kids need to know. That's what we all need to know. We come from great royal history, brothers and sisters. It don't start with slavery. Right. Not in this country, at least. All right, so now we're going to take a look at the people of the Bible. We have some great kings, and that's just one of many. But now we're going to read something about the color of the people of the Bible. We're going to read from this book called From Babylon to Timbuktu, right? Because we're going to see that the Bible, all unbiased history, accurate history, it already confirms what's written in the Bible. So yeah, bro, pick it up. I got it highlighted right here. Read this one, man. Pick it up, start at originally, and then we're going to, yeah, that one right here, the whole thing, and then we're going to skip that.
All right. From Babylon to Timbuktu,
yes,
chapter 4.
What page
is that? 33.
All right.
Originally, all Hamites and Shemites, or Semites, were black. Abraham was a black Shemite and a descendant of Shem.
The name of Abraham was Abram before he was referred to as Abraham. The three Hebrew patriarchs were Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This Jacob begot 12 sons, who later fathered the 12 tribes of Israel. Abraham was the father not only of the Hebrew Israelite nation, but also of the Arab nation.
Right, so we know that the Hamites were black. You read, we got the Compact Bible Dictionary. We don't need to read it, but it'll tell you that Ham is the progenitor of the dark races. So that's where the Africans came from. We know that they was black, and we know that the majority of the Shemites are also black, brothers and sisters. If you look up the word Semitic, it will tell you that it's a subgroup of Afro-Asiatic people. That's what it is. Skip down to Abraham. Yeah.
Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and the 12 tribes of Israel were all black people.
Right.
This I shall prove to you by a gradual method.
All right, a gradual method or deduction. Keep going. After
Joseph was sold down into Egypt as a slave, we find in the 42nd chapter of Genesis that he has become the viceroy of Egypt.
All right, so we still talking about, we reading a book, a historical book, a reference book, but he's still referring to the Bible, this book of Negroes, God's story. This is where he's getting it from. He's not just writing and making it up. It's from Genesis 42. Keep reading.
Joseph's 10 brothers came into Egypt. Egypt is in Africa, to buy corn because a famine was in the land.
Right. If you look at the Egyptians today, you would think Egypt is somewhere else, right? But nah, the original Egyptians are black people, a dark-skinned group of people. Keep reading.
All newcomers who came into Egypt had to buy corn from Joseph. But when Joseph's 10 brothers came to Africa, they did not recognize him. They did not recognize him because Joseph had grown up, and the Egyptians were a black people like the sons of Jacob. Jacob's 10 sons considered Joseph to be another black Egyptian. We know this to be true because the 10 brothers returned and reported to their father. The man who is the Lord of the land spoke roughly to us. Furthermore,
so the land of the Lord being who? Pharaoh being the Egyptians. So they thought their brother was the land. They thought he was an Egyptian. They thought he was the landlord, right? So that means if we know that the original Egyptians are black, all you got to do is do a Google search, say what original Egyptians look like. If we knew they were black, but then Joseph, who was an Israelite, got mistaken for an Egyptian, what that mean? That mean the Israelites had to be black too.
Exactly.
That's why he said we're going to just do a gradual method. This is reasonable deduction. That's all it is. Keep going.
Furthermore, if Joseph had been white, he would have aroused the curiosity of his brothers very rapidly.
Right.
We really do not need any more proof that the Israelites were black, but for the sake of argument, I will offer it. In many places in the Bible, we find the sons of Jacob and the later Israelites taking black Canaanite women for wives. If the ancient Israelites were not originally black, they would be after the intermingling with black Canaanite men and women.
So look at that. We know that your seed is based upon your father, right?
Yeah.
But we also know, we can also know in this country, people don't know that. And they look at, you had things like the one drop rule. Further back in our history, you just had one drop of black blood. That meant you were black. So let's take it that you don't know you are who your father is. Let's take Western society's construct of race and, how to identify somebody. If you just take racial mixing, then that will make them black too. Because they took African women. So either way you slice it, you're dealing with a black people. Because after all those years of mixing with Canaanite women and African women who we all know are black, then eventually, since the black gene is dominant, if they were white to begin with, which they weren't, they would have ended up black anyway. So either way you slice it, you can't get around this black history.
That's right. Teach.
Keep going, bro.
When the king of Egypt, Pharaoh, promulgated an edict to cast all the Hebrew male babies into the Nile River, Miriam and her mother hid the baby Moses in a basket alongside the river.
All right, stop. So remember we saw earlier that Egypt represents bondage and the bondmen. We saw that. Well, look right here, because we're going to find out that we in Egypt again right now. Just it's a global scale of bondage. Well, look what they were trying to do. Read that last sentence again, bro.
Miriam and her mother hid the baby Moses in a basket alongside the river.
Before that.
Oh, when the king of Egypt
Yeah.
promulgated an edict to cast all the Hebrew male babies into the Nile River.
All right, so he declared an edict or a law to kill black babies, brothers and sisters. That's what happened when we were in bondage in Egypt. And now that we in Egypt again, in America and all across the world, we see that there's a program after program to destroy not only black children, but black men in general, brothers and sisters.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happens when you're in slavery. And that's how we know God can't lie. We in Egypt again, experiencing the same hardship because they trying to destroy us. They've been trying to destroy us. That's why you have Planned Parenthood. See, if they can't do it that way, they'll find another way. That's why you got abortions. And if they can't do abortions, they'll do it another way. That's why you got the feminization of black men. Mm-hmm. You see, always trying to destroy the man. Because when you destroy the man, you destroy the family. Brothers and sisters. Keep reading.
Meanwhile, Pharaoh's daughter came down to the Nile to wash herself, and she saw the basket and the baby, Moses. Pharaoh's daughter knew that the baby was a Hebrew, and she adopted him. If Moses had been a white baby, it would have been difficult to conceal him from her father's anger.
Where you from, bro? You say baby.
What is it?
You from New Orleans or something?
No.
Baby. Go ahead, man.
In the period of Moses, the black Egyptians enslaved black Jews.
Uh-huh.
All right.
That's it. That's good.
That's it.
All right, so now that we know that they black, let's distinguish them because it's many black people, black groups all throughout the world. But this is how we know that we're dealing with Negroes. Deuteronomy 28. Because there's many black people all across the world, brothers and sisters. How do we know?
What'd I say? No.
Baby. You said baby.
I did.
Yeah. Deuteronomy 28. Don't worry about it, bro. Don't think too hard. It's okay.
No, that's good.
Yeah. They still love you, man. Deuteronomy 28. And we're going to pick it up at 25 because, brothers and sisters, we're going to distinguish. We're going to know, now that you know that they black, right, we have to understand it ain't all black people who are Israel. Even though Israel are black, not all black people are Israel. This is how you find out who Israel truly is. It's these curses that God put on us and our ancestors for disobedience. So Deuteronomy 28, and pick it up at verse 25. Go ahead, bro.
The Lord shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies.
Uh-huh.
Thou shalt go out one way against them and flee 7 ways before them.
All right, hold on. So he told you in Deuteronomy 7, we read it, if you keep the covenant, he'll have mercy on you. But if you hate him, he's going to destroy you. So that's why I said that was like a glimpse of Deuteronomy 28, brothers and sisters. That's what this has been about the whole time. Blessings and life for obedience or curses and death for disobedience. That's what this whole thing is about. Going all the way back to Adam. So finish that out, the end of 25.
And shalt be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth.
All right, so this black people have been removed into all kingdoms of the earth. There's only one group of people, if we want to just talk about America, there's only one people that was removed here, taken by force. Think about all the nations that's here. There's only been one, brothers and sisters, that was removed, taken by force, coerced here against their will. Against their will. Only one. So you know who we talking about. 29, bro.
And thou shalt grope at noonday, as the blind gropeth in darkness.
Uh-huh.
And thou shalt not prosper in thy ways.
All right, so while we scattered in this country, what's going to be our condition? Read it.
And thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore.
No justice, no peace.
And no man shall save thee.
No peace, no justice. That's all you hear. That's the song. Marching, no justice, no peace. Because the Lord God, whose story this is, said you will be oppressed forevermore. And we saw God is faithful. We saw that, right?
That's right.
We read that in Psalm 68. God is faithful, keeping his word, keeping his covenant. So he can't lie. That's why we sing that same song. No justice, no peace. That's our condition. 45. Keep going.
Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed.
The same thing he told you in Deuteronomy 7. God cannot lie. He's faithful. We read that in Deuteronomy 7. And God is faithful, right? Keep reading, bro, because what?
Because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes, which he commanded thee, and they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed
All
forever.
right, so that's why we have been removed into all nations, scattered, brothers and sisters, to the point where we're here in America as slaves, right, and haven't been home yet. So that means you're still a slave, right? That's why it happened, because we didn't keep God's commandments. He said, all these curses shall come upon thee and pursue thee and overtake thee, because you did not keep his commandments and his statutes. And guess what? 46, they shall be upon thee for a sign. So if you want to find God's chosen people, you look for these curses, brothers and sisters, and for a wonder. Because guess what? If you don't know these curses are on you, you're going to just be wondering, why is this happening to me? Why are we getting it like this? Why is it so bad for us?
That's right.
Why can't we come up? Why this? Why that? Even the other nations, why they always getting messed up? Why they always get the short end of the stick? Or why they always tripping out here? Right? It's a wonder. You wondering because you don't know what's in this book, brothers and sisters. It's a sign. The curse is a sign, but if you don't know the sign, you're going to wonder. And upon thy seed forever. So this is a semi-permanent state of oppression and slavery. Keep reading, 47.
Because thou servest not the Lord thy God with joyfulness and with gladness of heart, for the abundance of all things. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger, and in thirst, and in nakedness, and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck, until he have destroyed thee.
Right, yeah, that should sound familiar, brothers and sisters. That's our history. Right? Skip down to 58.
If thou wilt not observe to do all the words of this law that are written in this book, that thou mayest fear this glorious and fearful name, the Lord thy God, then the Lord will make thy plagues wonderful, and the plagues of thy seed, even great plagues, and of long continuance, and sore sicknesses, and of long continuance.
Right, so way before coronavirus and all that, right, the Lord then said that we will be plagued with sicknesses. So you look at the CDC's statistics, or you go to your local hospital and you try to pull up statistics for the demographic region, and you look at the medical statistics, you see we got the highest rate, highest blood pressure, highest rate of diabetes, right?
HIV.
Heart attack,
Come on.
HIV, and the list goes on and on and on, brothers and sisters. God said the reason why is because our lack of obedience to his law. That's the reason. Did you read 59? Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I did.
Skip down to 64.
And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from the one end of the earth even unto the other.
Right, so we were scattered into all nations. We're not just here. Keep going.
And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone.
Yeah, so you go to these churches, you see wooden images, crosses, even trees in the church and in the house of wood, right? Because they serving false gods. Christmas, false god. Wearing them crosses, false god. Right? Bowing down to stones. And, you know, we talked about Islam earlier, going to Mecca and kissing the Kaaba stone. False god, brothers and sisters. Keep reading though. 65.
And among these nations shalt thou find no ease.
No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. It's a sad song, but that's our song. And this is why, brothers and sisters, among these nations shalt thou find no ease. Keep reading.
Neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest, but the Lord shall give thee there a trembling heart,
Man.
and failing of eyes, and sorrow of mind.
Trembling heart, a failing of eyes, and a sorrow of mind. Every time the police, every time you hear that boop boop, you like, oh shoot, what I do this time? Oh wait, hold on now, it's just an ambulance. Okay, good. Oh God damn.
That's right.
You know?
Teach.
And it don't even have to be that, brothers and sisters. Our lives are not valued even amongst each other, because we are under this curse. That's why it's so important for us to keep these commandments and to know this book and this story according to the Bible, because it's going to show us how to have safety, how to have peace as a group of people, how to have peace in our homes, in our relationships. Because everything failing, all the problems with us is a direct result of keeping God's law. It's just that simple. So keep reading, bro.
And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships.
Mm-hmm. Oh, hold on. We skipping down to verse 68, just so everybody knows.
68.
Yeah, let's go.
And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships.
All right, so we saw we was in Egypt. We just read about that in the history book. We know about Egypt and the bondage, but the Lord said he's going to send you into Egypt again, right? And this time by way of ships. Keep going.
By the way whereof I spake unto thee.
Yeah.
Thou shalt see it no more again.
So you're not going back from where you came from, and we haven't been back home since, because God can't lie. Keep going.
And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you.
So just like I said, only one group of people were removed here, forced here, coerced here. Only one group of people came here as slaves, brothers and sisters, as bondmen and bondwomen. And this was the story and the situation all across the world, all across the board. Only one group of people. That's how you know, that's how you identify these Negroes or these Israelites. Because only these curses can fit only one people, brothers and sisters. That's it. So we know we're not making this up. We don't have a belief, This isn't, this isn't skepticism. This isn't, it may be. We know 100% that we are these people, brothers and sisters. We are the children of the book, according to the Bible. Because this curse only fits us, brothers and sisters. These conditions only fit us.
Teach.
So we are these people. All right, so Luke 21, let's see it in the New Testament, because God knew about it. He told the end from the beginning. So when he came on the scene as a man, of course he still knew. He gonna tell you what's gonna happen to these people. It's gonna show us how we got here. We go Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Luke 21, because people might think in the New Testament, Jesus don't have nothing to do with slavery, or, it's just about love, and you don't have to worry about that no more. Why you worrying about color and, Israelites, Hebrews? Nah, brothers and sisters. The whole Bible from Genesis to Revelation is dealing with God's chosen people. Because Jesus told you salvation is of the Jews. Mm-hmm. So you have to know who these people are if you want to get salvation in the first place. So you should care about what happened to them. Absolutely. And what the Lord said was going to happen to them. Because you need to know for salvation. Luke 21, and pick it up at verse 24. Luke 21 and 24, go ahead.
And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled.
All right, so Jerusalem, he's still talking about the Israelites. He's talking about the Jews. He said they shall be trodden down by the Gentiles, because Jerusalem was trodden down by the Gentiles, brothers and sisters. We know what happened by the Romans, by Titus, Vespasian, all of those cats. They ransacked, they besieged Jerusalem in 70 A.D. And they still control it to this day. 1948, the state of Israel, the state of Palestine was created based on the Balfour Treaty, which is more Gentiles. So we were led away captive into all nations. This is the New Testament. And we saw how we got into all nations. It was by ship. Until the times of the Gentiles. How long are we going to be there for? Until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. So that's why we haven't gone home yet. Because the times of the Gentiles has not been fulfilled. We're going to skip the last 2 million years. But I do want us to read a little history out of the ebony pictorial history of Black America. And we're going to read a little bit. Page 51. We're going to read a little bit about the slave trade, brothers and sisters, and see who was behind it. All right, so pick it up from Spain, bro. It's all highlighted.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Ebony Pictorial History of Black America, page 51.
Yes, sir.
Spain, which had been given possession of most of the New World by a papal bull, but which at the same time was prohibited from directly dealing in slaves, entered the slave business anyway, although in a rather oblique way. King Charles V, the successor of King Raymond and Queen Isabella, issued an asiento, a license which gave its holder the exclusive right to import annually 4,000 slaves into the Spanish colonies in the New World.
All right, great. So keep reading. How did they get that, though? We're going to find out. Keep reading.
The first to acquire the asiento were the Portuguese, who had long since become skilled in the capturing and marketing of African slaves.
Right, so it say African slaves because they were black, but we know that it wasn't African slaves, brothers and sisters.
That's right.
It was Negro slaves. They are two different people. Keep reading.
Portugal had entered Africa under Prince Henry the Navigator. As early as 1441, Prince Henry dispatched a ship to the Africa's west coast with orders to secure a cargo of skins, oils, spices, and gold. Captain Antonio Gonsalves, the young master of the ship, landed near Cape Bojador,
Yes.
in what is today the Republic of Senegal.
Right.
Overzealous, Gonsalves not only filled the ship with the cargo he was ordered to obtain, but, for good measure, added 10 Africans whom, upon return, he presented to his sovereign as a gift.
All right, so what is it going to say about Prince Henry?
Prince Henry thought highly of the present, so much so that he passed on some of the slaves to the Pope.
To who?
To the Pope.
To the Pope.
Who promptly conferred upon the prince full possession of all West Africa's coastal regions.
Read that last part again. Read that last sentence again.
So much so that he passed on some of the slaves to the Pope.
Who did what?
Who promptly conferred upon the prince full possession of all West Africa's coastal regions.
So the Pope is the one who granted the Spaniards and the Portuguese the coastal regions for enslavement, brothers and sisters. That's why when we just read in Luke 21, it talked about the Gentiles were going to trodden you down, and you should be led away into all nations by the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. But you should know, it's not just talking about Europeans. It's talking about who was ruling when Jesus was on the scene in Jerusalem. Rome. That's who was ruling. The Gentiles have been ruling since Nebuchadnezzar, brothers and sisters. But the last Gentile dynasty, which we are still waiting for it to be fulfilled, is the Roman Empire. So it's no coincidence that the Romans came and besieged Jerusalem and trodden it down, like the Lord said in Luke 21 and 24. And it's no coincidence that the Romans are the ones, right? We're talking about the Pope and the Catholic Church. We're talking about them cats. They're the ones that legislated the slave trade, brothers and sisters. If it wasn't for them, it wouldn't be possible to happen the way it did. Keep reading. The Pope's what?
The Pope's edict set the stage for a long succession of Portuguese expeditions aimed at the exploration and exploitation of the gold-rich Gulf of Guinea area.
Look at that. Just like we just read in the other history book about Pharaoh's edict to kill the little boys, right? When you have an edict, that means that's a position of power, of rulership, and you put out a formal law to the nations. That's what an edict is. And you see the Pope is putting out an edict for our slavery, brothers and sisters, through this papal bull. That's what really triggered the slave trade. Portugal and Spain had to get the permission of the Pope to enslave us, brothers and sisters. That's how it happened. Keep reading.
In 1481, Portugal established the first European outpost in Africa, Fort Elmina.
Fort Elmina, that's good. You can stop right there. We know Fort Elmina's in Ghana. All right, so I'm going to read another reference from a book called Capitalism and Slavery by Eric Williams. And it says, actually, let me just tell you something about this papal bull from 1452 real quick. This is from an article called The Pope, the Jews, and the Slave Trade. It says, Pope Nicholas V issued the papal bull, Dum Diversus, it's in Latin, on June 18, 1452. It authorized Alfonso V of Portugal, like we just read, to reduce any pagans and any other unbelievers to perpetual slavery. So that's why they tried to tell us that we didn't have no culture, We was from the dark continent, uncivilized, savage beasts. And we, Christianity, we're going to come as the white saviors, the white man's burden to save you from this uncultured, uncivilized, beast-like mentality that you had. That was their, notion. That's what they used to justify it. It says the same Pope wrote the bull Romanus Pontifex on January 5th, 1455. All right? And it says, along with sanctifying the seizure of non-Christian lands, it encouraged the enslavement of native non-Christian peoples in Africa and the New World. And it says, it goes on to say, in his book, Capitalism and Slavery, Eric Williams writes, Portugal, which had initiated the movement of the international expansion, claimed the new territories on the ground that they fell within the scope of a papal bull of 1455, authorizing her to servitude all infidel peoples. And I'm going to skip down. It says, after carefully sifting the rival claims, the Pope issued in 1493 a series of papal bulls which established a line of demarcation between the two states. The east went to Portugal and the west to Spain. It says, England, France, and even Holland began to challenge the Iberian Axis, because they joined the slave trade later, and claimed their place in the sun. It says the Negro, or the Israelite, who we reading about, the Negro too was to have his place, though he did not ask for it. Like I said, we were removed into all nations. We didn't ask for that, right? But we did ask it from God, because we went into a covenant with him. Mm-hmm. And we disobeyed the covenant. So God was like, yeah, you did ask for it. You had it coming. It says the Negro too was to have his place, though he did not ask for it. It was the broiling sun of the sugar, tobacco, and cotton plantations of the New World. So that was how we got to the New World, brothers and sisters, through the edicts of the Catholic Church, through the Pope, the Gentiles. All right, so let's take a look at Isaiah 42, because we're going to see something about our captivity while we're here, because we should all be familiar with this. Isaiah 42. So it ain't been pretty. He said, your feet not going to have no ease. So once we been brought here by slave ships, by way of the Pope, what's our condition like in this servitude? Let's see. Isaiah 42, pick it up at 22, bro.
But this is a people robbed and spoiled. They are all of them snared in holes, and they are hid in prison houses. They are for a prey, and none delivereth, for a spoil, and none saith, restore.
All right, so this people, who we talking about? These Negroes, right? This people is robbed and spoiled. That's what happened to us when we went into captivity. We was robbed of our language, our religion, our culture, our identity, right? And spoiled, brothers and sisters, destroyed. They are all of them snared in holes. That's a trap. Like DMX said, I'm slipping, I'm falling, I can't get up.
That's right.
That's snared in a hole. It could be physically, it could be mentally, spiritually, because of our disobedience to God. They are hid in prison houses. They are for a prey, and none delivereth, for a spoil, and none say restore. So you can forget about getting reparations. It says none saith restore. So restore, restoration, reparations, repair, restore. It's the same thing. The Lord, now you wonder why you don't get it. It's in this book of Negroes. Right? God is telling you you're not going to get them.
That's right. Come on.
So if you want to understand your future, your fate, your condition, your present, your past, you need to understand this book, brothers and sisters. Because this is God's story. It's not his story. We're not making this up. This is inspired by God. The Lord gave this word, brothers and sisters. It's been written. Keep reading, bro.
Who among you will give ear to this?
Who going to listen, though? Because we telling it. Keep going.
Who will hearken and hear for the time to come?
Yep.
Who gave Jacob for a spoil and Israel to the robbers? Did not the Lord?
Oh, so the Lord did this. So you can't blame the white man. You can't blame Ishmael. You can't blame your own people. You can't even say, if scholars that don't have any understanding, they say black people sold black people into slavery. You can't even say that. Because the Lord did this. Keep reading.
Did not the Lord, he against whom we have sinned?
We saw that from Deuteronomy 28. Keep going.
For they would not walk in his ways, neither were they obedient unto his law.
See, the same reason right there. So we know what our solution is to turn back to God's law. That's the solution, brothers and sisters. 25.
Therefore he hath poured upon him the fury of his anger, and the strength of battle, and it hath set him on fire round about. Yet he knew not, and it burned him, yet he laid it not to heart.
He laid it not to heart. See, don't even consider, right? Destroyed. So look, brothers and sisters, I'm not going to read this right now for the sake of time, but I know a lot of people know about this book. It was a New York Times bestseller. The New Jim Crow talks about the mass incarceration. The actual title, the whole title is called The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration in the Age of Colorblindness. So we know that Israel makes like 13% of the population, between 13 and 14%, but over 70% in the industrial prison complex. And we just read that out of the Bible, brothers. So we don't even need her book. This is a great book. It shows you, the political and systematic racism, right? But you don't even need it, brothers and sisters, because all it is bearing witness. It's a symptom of these curses for disobedience to God. That's all it is. And let's look at something else, though. Zechariah 11. Zechariah 11. And we're going to look at something else. When you get there, bro, pick it up at verse 4 when you get there.
Thus saith the Lord my God, feed the flock of the slaughter, whose possessors slay them and hold themselves not guilty.
All right, so it say, feed the flock of the slaughter, whose possessors slay them and do what?
Hold themselves not guilty.
And hold themselves not guilty. So for you to be possessed, right? Or who's your possessor? Who is that? That's the slave master. That's the people who own you. It says whose possessors slay them, so they kill you. So, even if you go back to the history of the police, you're going back to slave patrol, brothers and sisters. They were policing the slaves. Even got the same badges. That's where they go back to. That's where the history stem back to. So we are their possessors. We are the possessed as slaves, whose possessors slay them. So it ain't no, wonder why the police killing us even unto this day. They've been doing that. They possess you. They think that you're their property, so they can do whatever. That's why they just sold you, right? Whose possessors slay them and hold themselves what? Not guilty. So they kill you and they get off. We know about this. It's been happening for many years, right? But in recent history, from Trayvon Martin all the way up. And I just want to read a few cases, right, where an officer was indicted or charged, but there's been no conviction, with the police or your possessors slaying you and getting off not guilty, like we just read in the Bible. It's just a few, right? You have Freddie Gray, Baltimore, no conviction. And they even tell you what the settlement was. I ain't even going to get into all that. Sandra Bland, Texas, right? Prairie View, Texas, no conviction. Samuel DuBose, Cincinnati, no conviction. Philando Castile, Falcon Heights, Minnesota, no conviction. Terrence Crutcher, Tulsa, Oklahoma, no conviction, brothers and sisters. Now, these are cases in which officers have not even been charged. It's just a few. You know the names. Eric Gardner, Staten Island. Michael Brown, Ferguson, Missouri. Tamir Rice, Cleveland, all 2014. You had Christian Taylor in 2015, brothers and sisters, in Arlington, Texas. You had Alton Sterling in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. You had Paul O'Neill in Chicago. You had Keith Lamont Scott in Charlotte, North Carolina. Have not been charged, brothers and sisters. But we see that it's already been written by God, our story, our plight. And it didn't have to be bad. It's only bad because we disobeyed God's law, right? You don't want to serve God and keep the dietary law. You want to serve the idol of shrimp fried rice. You don't want to keep God's holy days. You want to participate in the slave masters, holidays, which is Christmas and Easter and Sunday. You're doing what the slave master tell you to do because you're not reading your book, or you letting them teach you your book, which is still wrong. Because he only revealed his secrets to the prophets. So you got to know who you are. All right, let's keep it moving. Jeremiah 50. Let's see why this hasn't stopped, brothers and sisters. Because you got to see this book called the New Jim Crow. The New Jim Crow just means that you had an old Jim Crow. And guess how many years we had of that? 100 years of Jim Crow. And before that, you had the government-sanctioned, institutionalized slavery of 246 years. And now, so we went from 246 years of government-sanctioned slavery to 100 years of Jim Crow. Now we under the age of the mass incarceration, which is the new Jim Crow. So why is it program after slavery and oppression? Well, because God said so. And he can't lie. He said, spoil and oppress forevermore. That's what he said. And let's see the mentality of these Gentiles that have us oppressed, brothers and sisters. Jeremiah 50. Hold on, when I get there, we can go ahead. Jeremiah 50. Actually, you can go ahead and read, my brother. Start at 33.
Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together.
Right, so look at that. So we talking about oppression, right? We talking about the new Jim Crow, talking about slavery, we talking about oppression. It says, thus saith the Lord of hosts, the children of Israel, or the children of Negroes, and the children of Judah were oppressed together. Yeah, we oppressed. You don't need Colin Kaepernick to tell you that. But keep reading, bro, because we're going to see what's the possessor's mentality, the slave master mentality. Keep reading, man.
And all that took them captives.
All right, well, all of them that took them captives, what did they do?
Held them fast.
They held them fast, like you mine. And what else?
They refused to let them go.
So we ain't going nowhere, brothers and sisters. That's why marching, how you marching on your enemy's land thinking they going to change it when they the ones doing it? What sense that make?
Teach.
Come on, that don't even make sense. You protesting to the wrong people. They the ones doing it. And they refusing to let you go, just like, look, God is cold, man, just like Egypt, just like Pharaoh. He said, let my people go. Moses told him, what'd he say? Nah, bruh, you mine. He held them fast and refused to let them go because we in Egypt again, brothers and sisters. Just like how Pharaoh did it, these slave masters have the same mentality. Understand it. This is our history, but it's God's story.
That's right.
It ain't their story because the Gentiles are enemies. We can't be listening to them when it comes to our history. They done enslaved you, oppressed you, got off not guilty. So why would you go to their institutions? And, of course we got to live. I ain't saying don't go to the bank and don't go to school. I ain't saying that. But you got some extremists like, we got to get off the grid. Like, I ain't saying do all that. We still slaves. Jeremiah 29 tell you what to do. You know what I'm saying? We got to live the best that we can in this predicament. But we have to serve God and go back to our history for ourselves. And don't let your enemies try to dictate your history. All right? Keep reading though, man. Where we at?
34.
34. Keep going.
Their Redeemer is strong. The Lord of hosts is his name.
So he gonna redeem us though. I'm sorry. We went from oppression from the enemy to God redeeming us.
That's right.
This is the I should say the last leg of the lesson, brothers and sisters. Because we done seen the curses, but now we're gonna see God's deliverance of his people. All right, so you done seen that. They refused to let them go, but because they refused to let you go, God got something to say about that. Because he still chose his people. Don't forget that. 34 says what again?
Their Redeemer is strong. The Lord of hosts is his name.
Right.
He shall thoroughly plead their cause.
Yeah.
That he may give rest to the land and disquiet the inhabitants of Babylon.
The inhabitants of who?
Babylon.
Oh, so when we talk about mystery Babylon the Great, brothers and sisters, who we talking about? We talking about who? Who said that? Rome. So we talking about the same people who enslaved you. God is coming back saying he's going to redeem you from Rome. That's what we reading. The same people we saw that legislated the slave trade. It's the same people. So God knows what he's talking about. He didn't wrote this. It's airtight. That's what we talking about, brothers and sisters. Keep reading. 35. Keep going.
A sword is upon the Chaldeans.
He's talking about, just like you got the new Jim Crow, he's talking about the new Babylon. The new Chaldeans are the Romans. That's why we read in the New Testament, Revelations 13, Revelation 17, about Babylon the Great. And we know that's talking about the mother of harlots, the Roman Catholic Church. These are the same people who destroyed you, brothers and sisters. And God knows it, which is why he's coming back to destroy them. Because they the ones that enslaved you. Remember, he just said they refused to let you go. We talking about the same people. These the same people who enslaved you are the same people that tried to steal your priesthood, say that they're God's church and you are no longer God's church. You think that's a coincidence? Nah, they enslaved you and then stole your priesthood. And said, we are God's church. They know exactly what they're doing. And it's written, brothers and sisters. It's proven. Because God then told this whole thing. And he revealed his secrets unto us. The prophets. Keep reading, man.
A sword is upon the Chaldeans, saith the Lord,
Yeah.
and upon the inhabitants of Babylon,
Yeah.
and upon her princes, and upon her wise men.
Yup, a sword is coming for them. Keep going.
A sword is upon the liars, and they shall dote. A sword is upon her mighty men, and they shall be dismayed.
And they will be dismayed because he's going to kill them. Verse 40. What are you going to do?
As God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah, and the neighbor cities thereof, saith the Lord, so shall no man abide there,
Yeah.
neither shall any son of man dwell therein.
Yeah, that's what God going to do to Babylon, brothers and sisters. Just like how he destroyed them with fire and brimstone, he coming back with what? Fire, flames, to destroy these same people who destroyed you. All right, so let's take a look at it some more. Joel 3. As we know how it ends. Like I said, this is it's not just black history, it's the present and the future. Joel 3. And when you get there, my brother, you're going to pick it up at verse 1. Joel 3 and 1.
For behold, in those days and in that time,
Yeah.
when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem.
All right, so that's what we're talking about. We done seen the curse, right? But now the Lord said he going to bring us back from captivity, brothers and sisters. So not only did he curse us, he's going to bless us, but we got to turn back to him. And in these last days, he's going to bring us back from captivity. Verse 2.
I will also gather all nations, and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, and will plead with them there for my people, and for my heritage Israel.
Yeah, because like I say in Romans 9, God hasn't cast away his people who we foreknew. You read Romans 9, you read Romans 11. It tell you about that, brothers and sisters. God ain't cast away his people. You know, people try to act like the Jews don't matter, they've been done away with. Nah, that's a lie, brothers and sisters. God has not forgotten about the covenant he made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We read about that earlier, that covenant. And because of that covenant, God's going to redeem us from this captivity, just like he redeemed us from Egypt the first time. But he said, you're going into Egypt again. So because we went into Egypt again, he's got to redeem us again because God can't lie. That's how good God is, brothers and sisters. Keep reading, bro.
Whom they have scattered among the nations,
right,
and parted my land.
So we done seen that. Jesus told you about it. Moses told you about it. But the Lord telling you about the end. He going to redeem you from where you were scattered. Verse 3.
And they have cast lots for my people.
Oh, so we should know about that. Before it was Black Friday, you know, we was the product that was on sale. On the auction blocks. In New Amsterdam, which is, you know, Manhattan's, New York. Known today. Keep going, bro.
And have given a boy for an harlot, and sold a girl for wine, that they might drink.
So before you had Wall Street, brothers and sisters, understand, we were the stock. We were the bond, because we're bond men. We the stock and the bonds originally understand. That's how the whole landscape, you know, the economic landscape was built off our lashed backs, brothers and sisters. Billions and billions of cotton was translated into wealth, land that was tilled, you know, that was used for business. That was from us. We built that. Right? Mm-hmm. Verse 4, go ahead.
Yea, and what have ye to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon?
All right, so it's not just the Gentile nations, the white nations. You got African nations involved. Mm-hmm. And what if, and go ahead, finish that out though.
And all the coasts of Palestine.
That's the Arabs involved too. Mm-hmm. Keep going.
Will ye render me a recompense?
Uh-huh.
And if ye recompense me, swiftly and speedily will I return
Skip
your recompense.
Skip down to verse 6. What did these Arabs and black African nations do to Israel? Go ahead.
The children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have ye sold unto the Grecians.
Oh, so the blacks and the Arabs sold you, or I should say the black Africans, sold you unto the Grecians, or in other words, unto the Europeans. That's what that means. Grecians just saying is Europeans. It's white people. Skip down to verse 9. What the Lord going to do?
Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles.
Oh, because the Gentiles got you in captivity. The Gentiles took your priesthood. Right? Mm-hmm. So now the Lord got to come back, like we just read in Jeremiah 50. He going to destroy Babylon. He going to go to war with him. That's how he going to do it. So go ahead. 9 again.
Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles.
Uh-huh.
Prepare war.
Oh, so it's about to be a war. That's how we going to get out of this slavery. That's the only way. Because he said, no man shall save you. Malcolm and, you know, Martin, they couldn't do it. Right? Marcus couldn't do it, brothers and sisters. Keep reading.
Prepare war.
Right.
Wake up the mighty men.
Right.
Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears.
Skip down to 15, bro.
The sun and the moon shall be darkened.
So this is how we know. Just like in Matthew 24, this is the sign of the return of the Lord. This is how we know at what time the Lord's going to redeem us. It says the sun and the moon shall what?
Shall be darkened.
And what else?
And the stars shall withdraw their shining.
That's how we know that sign, brother. That's only going to happen one time. You can read it in Matthew 24. Go ahead.
The Lord also shall roar out of Zion.
Yeah, that's what he's going to do. Keep going.
And utter his voice from Jerusalem.
Yeah.
And the heavens and the earth shall shake. But the Lord will be the hope of his people.
He's going to be the hope of these Negroes. Because we are hopeless people right now, brothers and sisters. And the strength of what?
The children of Israel.
That's what we read in the beginning. The strength of his excellency. That's what we read. Keep going. Keep reading.
So shall ye know that I am the Lord your God, dwelling in Zion, my holy mountain. Then shall Jerusalem be holy, and there shall no strangers pass through her anymore.
Right. That's a blessing because you got the Edomites and all these other nations in your land, strangers, right? So the Lord, like, because that's who, you know, you got to ask yourself, if we the true Jews, who's the ones in Israel today? Who the Israelis? They not the Jews. They are strangers.
That's right.
Right? When you know your history about Esau and Jacob, you know that they're Esau brothers and sisters. But guess what? If you didn't know that, just keep reading, man. Go down to 19.
Egypt shall be a desolation, and Edom shall be a desolate.
Why are you talking about Egypt and Edom? Because we just saw Tyre and Zidon sold you to the Grecians, so he's repaying them. Egypt is getting repaid at this time. Who sold you into slavery? Who were your first slave masters in the first place? And then he just read about the strangers in your land. Well, that's Edom, brothers and sisters. The Lord got everybody's number. He getting the Gentiles busting their heads. He getting the Egyptians for their role in the slave trade.
That's right.
And all the Africans, and he getting Edom, who stole your identity. Read Revelation 2 and 9. Read Ezekiel 35. Read Obadiah 1. You'll see it. Egypt shall be a desolation. Y'all all gonna get it. And Edom shall be a desolation wilderness. Keep going, man. A desolate wilderness.
For the violence against the children of Judah, because they have shed innocent blood in their land. But Judah shall dwell forever.
Oh, Judah gonna dwell forever. You're gonna be straight, Judah. Just turn back to God. That's what you need to do. Keep going.
And Jerusalem from generation to generation.
Because God gonna keep that covenant, brothers and sisters. Let's take a look at it some more. Deuteronomy 30. Let's see what we gotta do. Deuteronomy 30. And for the sake of time, This is going to be our last place, brothers and sisters. Deuteronomy 30. You can read Ezekiel 37 on your own. Deuteronomy 30, we're going to see what we need to do in order to be a part of this salvation plan from God to the children of Israel. Because we read about the blessings, we read about the curses, and now we're going to see the final picture. All right? Deuteronomy 30, pick it up at verse 1.
And it shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse.
So this is everything, the blessing and the curse. We still under the curse, so this time didn't even come yet. It hasn't come yet. Keep going.
Which I have set before thee.
Right, because God told the end from the beginning. So he's telling you all the way back here, I knew you was going to be blessed. We was blessed during the time of King David, King Solomon. We read about King Solomon. It said Judah and Israel were, drinking, eating, merry, right?
Safe.
They were safe. That was the blessing, brothers and sisters. The same with King David when he was ruling. That was the blessing. It says, and when it shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse. So we just read about the curse. We know about the curse. We live in the curse. Keep going.
Which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations whither the Lord thy God have driven thee.
Yeah, so, hey, us in here, this is a part of God's plan, brothers and sisters, because we called it to mind. The Lord knew we would call it to mind. So understand, if you here, you in the right place. This is God's work, brothers and sisters. God is doing this. Keep going, verse 2.
And shalt return unto the Lord thy God, and shalt obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day.
That's that day. That's that day, brothers and sisters. That means God's law from that day is still good. Keep going.
Thou and thy children, with all thine heart and with all thy soul.
Then what?
That then the Lord thy God will turn thy captivity, and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations whither the Lord thy God hath scattered thee.
So we saw about how God scattered us and he used the nations and he used slave ships, right? But this is what we need to do to return, brothers and sisters. We need to return to God. And God, we saw in Joel 3, he's going to return and destroy these enemies of Israel, our enemies, and regather us, redeem us, take us back to the land, make us kings and queens again. He's going to do that. That then the Lord thy God will turn thy captivity, but you got to do something first. We got to wake up and turn back to God.
That's right.
It's not about, like I said, economic, military, political. It's none of that. It's a spiritual problem, brothers and sisters. And if we want to be saved and delivered, we have to turn back to God. It's just that simple. That the Lord thy God will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee and will return. See, the Lord going to come back and return. That means he came a first time. This is talking about Jesus. All the way back in Deuteronomy 30, this is second coming. Because we saw in Joel 3, he's going to have to come back. He's going to roar out of Zion, right? So he's going to return and gather thee from all the nations whither the Lord thy God has scattered thee. Keep reading.
If any of thine be driven out unto the utmost parts of heaven, from thence will the Lord thy God gather thee, and from thence will he fetch thee.
Yeah, it don't matter where you at. From Babylon to Timbuktu, it don't matter. Keep going.
And the Lord thy God will bring thee into the land which thy fathers possessed, and thou shalt possess it, and he will do thee good, and multiply thee above thy fathers.
Yeah, because God cannot lie, brothers and sisters. And this is our history, but it's God's story. It's not the enemy's story. It's not his story. It's our story, brothers and sisters. And if we want to reclaim what God has for our future, we must know our past, right? But to understand our past, we must go into this book. This is God's story, the book of Negroes. I hope you have got some understanding in Jesus' name. What's up?
Yes, sir.
Praise God, bro.
They know it's another lesson, right?
Huh?
You tell them it's another lesson?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought I see people leaving.
Oh, no. Brother Chris is about to come up and do his. Y'all just read Ezekiel 37 on your own.